Welcome to another edition of the Rashad Mills Show here on Awesome God Radio. Super duper. I'll use the old school word. Super duper excited that you decided to join me and my special guest, who I will introduce momentarily. First and foremost, thank you for being with me on this evening, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You literally could have been anywhere in the world, and my guest will talk about being anywhere in the world as an experienced world traveler. First and foremost, I just appreciate you being here because there's so many opportunities for you to be sort of distracted with other media. So if you're here in this virtual space, Rashad Mills Show, Awesome God Radio, Facebook and YouTube Live, I'm grateful for you. I should say, from the bottom of my heart, I truly appreciate your presence. Now, I want you to stay connected to the show. Obviously, with both of those platforms, Facebook and YouTube Live, any comment, question, and concern for myself, but more importantly for my guests, I want to make sure that those get answered because it's all about my guest tonight and the information that he can help all of us with and change the course of our lives. So this special guest that I've been talking about, I've been watching his work for a long time. I know him personally. Kemoy Martin, real estate investor, short-term rental coach, world traveler. The last time I checked, it was 39 countries, but that may be up to 40 or even beyond that at this point. And I want to read this quote, and this is sort of your business model, and then I'll bring you right in, Kemoy. I help people create freedom so they can travel the world. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest, Kemoy Martin. Kemoy, how are you?
I'm incredible, man. I appreciate you having me on here.
No problem at all. I like the energy and I like the verbiage that you use. Incredible. So this is a very interesting story. Number one, I appreciate you being a man of your words. And Rashad, I will create some time for you. You're actually en route from New Jersey to Baltimore now, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So tell people, where you were, I guess, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6, 12 hours ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Literally this morning I was in the country of Panama. I was out there for a few days. That I had a chance of celebrating being on my traveling to my 40th country. You know,
Wow.
and Panama's kind of been on my list for a while, so it was a good time to eat some whole snapper and plantains out there and explore the country. And I had an interesting, I guess, travel Baltimore. So I figured let me fly into New Jersey so I can get on an Amtrak train to get to Baltimore so I can make sure I can jump on here because my other flight situation would have had me in the air and I wouldn't be able to get on. So I wanted to make sure I
Wow.
can kind of connect.
And man, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate you. You found a way to make it happen. So there's always a way to
Absolutely,
make it
always do.
happen. So now it literally is 40 countries now. So it's 39 and now it's actually 40. So one of the things that I want to go back before we get into sort of your business model that allows you to travel all over the world and do these amazing things, take these great pictures, and just see the world from a much greater perspective. I want to go back for a moment for 2020 and COVID with travel for an individual like yourself that travels so much. Like, how was that for you? Like, what was that like? Because you travel so much, knowing that things have changed greatly and you were restricted to a great degree. What was that like?
Yeah, so I mean, it's funny. Actually, right before like the height of it getting started, COVID, I should say, getting started. I had literally just came back from Asia. I went to in February 2020. I went to Bali,
Mm,
Singapore, and Malaysia. And literally things were just going on. We just had to start wearing masks in the airport, and of course, I guess you could say it kind of stems from Asia. So the fact that I was in Asia was pretty interesting. Um, but I was kind of grateful that I went on that trip around that time because I didn't know it was gonna hit the way that it did.
mm.
So maybe because I went to like several countries back to back that February, I didn't really feel so bad during that like March, April, May, June, because I didn't really travel at all. But then I ended up going to Mexico in July. But it did feel over those months, it felt a little weird not being able to travel. It did feel pretty restricted.
Mm.
But it also
How,
gave me
how did
time to
you
think.
compensate for that then? How did you compensate for being like in one place and being stationary?
Well, let me tell you something. Honestly, I feel like as much as it was chaotic, it was kind of a blessing too, because it really allowed me to really like sit still and like think and like and really pivot and kind of come up with different ideas. Like I started like really working out because I kind of fell off working out, so I got back into like a workout rhythm. I ended up like just eating better than I've ever ate.
Mm,
I was getting in a better shape than I've ever been before. Um, I was reading more than I ever read. Like I was just kind of reframing my goals and things of that nature. So, and of course, I want to travel, and I always told myself, man, even though I was traveling a lot, I'm not gonna kind of put things off. Goals and places I want to travel to because COVID just kind of shows you that you really never know. And of
mm.
course we know this, but it's just to kind of really experience it even more. It just kind of displayed, man, like anything you really want to do, just kind of take action without thinking.
Now, Kemoy, you've always had this entrepreneurial spirit in you, right? You've always been an entrepreneur. What sort of led you down that road of being an entrepreneur and not wanting to be in sort of a traditional 9 to 5 and under the reign of somebody else and having so much time and freedom to live the life according to the way that you wanted it to live?
I mean, it really stemmed from because I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, and I came down to Baltimore, Maryland, to go to Morgan State University,
The
and
greatest
after
HBCU ever, by the way.
100%, 100%.
Absolutely.
Um, and then I graduated and I got into the real world, and after just a couple of years, my last job, I was actually a caseworker at Department of Social Services, and that thing is my degree is in biology. I had nothing to do with my degree, that job. I had all this student loan debt, and I just kind of remember going to work every day, just kind of feeling unfulfilled,
Mm,
and it just really felt like, and not to say there's anything wrong with the job per se, but I just kind of felt like that I was supposed to do something else. Like I felt like I didn't feel free. I didn't feel like whenever like I went on vacation, it always felt like I was escaping or I was getting away from reality. And I didn't want to have student loans at the top of my head, for the rest of my life. So I was like, I
mm.
read Rich Dad Poor Dad and kind of personal development books like that. And after kind of really tapping into personal development, meeting other entrepreneurs, I was like, you know what? I didn't grow up in a family of entrepreneurs or a family of wealth, but I don't know what it is, but I feel very connected to this lifestyle, this way of living. The fact that an average person can create generational wealth. Like I really wanted to get on that path, you know. So, and once I knew that was possible, there was really no way for me not to go after it. It was just complete. It was impossible. I had to. I wanted it, you know.
Mm.
So yeah, that was like the start.
So, what was your first really experience into sort of the entrepreneurial world? Like, what was the one of those first jobs that you had that you kind of it kind of sort of heightened your love for the entrepreneurial spirit?
Yeah, I would say in undergrad, I used sorry about the background.
No, 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 no. That's a part of it. That's cool.
Yeah, so I used to sell cars when I was at Morgan. I used to sell cars. So what I do is I would get cars from the auction and I would sell them like off of Craigslist, like in between classes, you know. So that was a pretty cool way to earn income while I was in undergrad. Then eventually, I just I used to sell like P90X and Sandy and Rosetta Stones. I used to like really hustle them. And I would
Also,
do
so
that.
you were really a true hustle man.
Yeah, man. Listen, I remember reading a book called 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, and he was kind of
Mm.
talking about like importing products from like out the country. So like that's what kind of gave me the idea to get a bunch of these products and then just start selling it like on Craigslist and like social media and like it's really moving it. It's really moving it. Then eventually I got into like network marketing and then wholesaling, and my mind was just open, man, open. Like if there was a way to make, passive income or make money outside of having a job, like and it was legit. Like I was on it. I was open to it.
Wow. Okay. So this is a perfect segue. You have these different hustles, right? So you mentioned real estate. So I know you're a real estate investor in the wholesaling world. When did you sort of form this? limitless B&B and tell people what that is, because I think people look at you from afar and they see this guy traveling, and I don't know that if many people have taken the time to sort of look into the business model that really allows you to be able to do such. So kind of tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, so pretty much how it happened, boom. So like I was saying, like I was in network marketing, right? And like I was in a network marketing company that had to do with travel and things like that. So that was kind of like one of the things that kind of pushed me to travel. But in the midst of a lot of my traveling, the more I traveled, the more I wanted to travel. And I stayed in a bunch of like hotels, resorts, but I also stayed in Airbnbs. And I was like, man, the more I stayed in these different types of properties all across the world, I was like, the model of an Airbnb just kind of seemed simple, and I was already involved in real estate. But then when I kind of had a good friend of mine, start Airbnb, and they were doing it in a way where they were making money off properties that they didn't own.
Mm,
And for us, I'm actually in real estate, but
hmm.
the way how my mind was, wow, the only way to make money off a property is if you have to own it. You became a traditional landlord, and that's how you made money off properties. But yeah, my friend was making money on these properties that she didn't own, and her cash flow and profit was much higher than, say, a traditional landlord on a property they own.
Wow.
And that's when I really knew that there was something there, because I'm staying in a bunch of these Airbnbs. I have a close friend making money on Airbnbs, and then I see that the money's passive, because you can kind of create the business in a way where you can set a system up, and the money kind of comes in whether you physically having to be somewhere.
Mm.
And I already kind of was enjoying the freedom to travel, and I was like, well, I want to really continue this, and I saw how Airbnb can be pretty much be able to allow me to do that, and I can kind of do this business without owning property, So it just made sense.
So I just actually put that in the chat for the people that are watching the Rashad Mills Show here on Awesome God Radio, Facebook and YouTube Live. Joined by my guest, world traveler, real estate investor, short-term rental coach Kemoy Martin is actually en route back to Baltimore now. Just and again, I appreciate that so much. You adjusting your schedule to make some time for the Rashad Mills Show. But I want people to really understand the magnitude of what you just said, and that didn't go over anybody's head. That you can actually make money off of a property that you don't own. So for somebody watching the show right now at home saying that's impossible, kind of give us a little more meat to the bone to say, yeah, this is possible that it can happen. You are doing it, and how it actually can happen.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that. Yeah, I've actually have heard people say like, "Man, that's impossible. Is it legal? You're gonna go to jail." And it's crazy to me, but again, a lot of people, you don't know what you don't know, and people don't understand something, their mind just kind of goes on a tangent. But this concept is 100% real, and it's 100% happening in a major way. And man, there are people doing it, making 6 and 7 figures, all around the world. And pretty much so if you understand, maybe you never stayed in an Airbnb, and all an Airbnb is pretty much a platform. It's a site, the similar sites like VRBO, Booking.com, and all people pretty much do is they put their property up, whether it be a house, condo, apartment, or anything of that nature. Even people put their boats. You can literally stay in a boat. I mean, there's all
A
types of unique
boat?
places. Yeah, people Airbnb boats,
Wow.
and you can literally sleep in a boat. Like there's all types of properties where people put on this platform, and they either own the property, or they rent the property. They don't necessarily have to be the owner. And other users that are looking for places to stay in those prospective, cities, state, or countries, they book it via that site, and they stay in it. And again, the host, they can either own the property or they can rent the property. So what I mean, like, boom, obviously we understand when somebody owns the property, but let's just say I lease a property, from an owner. I have the ability to furnish that property and put it on Airbnb, so that way somebody else can rent it out, you know, and I can lease it legally. So that's the thing too that I always teach my students, because I do offer a course on how to do it. There's a way to do it, right? Where you can literally talk to these landlords, property managers in apartment complexes, and create a win-win situation for you to pretty much lease these properties, and boom, they're getting their monthly rent every single month. They're getting their cash flow, right? And you have this property that you're able to pretty much furnish and put on Airbnb, you know. And again, it's a win-win situation because you got to think about it like this: when somebody rents an apartment, what is the condition that a tenant leaves it in after they move out? Like, what is the condition of that property typically when a tenant moves out?
I would say probably bad. It probably needs some work right after that.
Yeah, usually pretty bad because for a landlord, landlord's biggest expense is turnover, right? And a lot of times these tenants really leave properties looking horrendous, right? But for people that have stayed in Airbnb, the question that I ask yourself is, have you seen some really nice Airbnbs? Like, have you seen some Airbnbs that you feel like you had no business being in? Like, was it like luxury? Was it top notch? A lot of people are like, yeah,
Absolutely.
I've seen some really nice Airbnbs. Well, you got to think about it like this: that Airbnb host that has that Airbnb, they're financially incentivized to keep that property looking like that 365 days out the year, right?
Mm,
They have professional cleaners that clean the property in between the guests. Anything that happens that can kind of, jeopardize the look of it, they're gonna fix it and they're gonna make it better because again, they're financially incentivized. They want to have 5-star reviews. They want to keep consistent guests, and this is a property that's making the money, so they're gonna keep it looking good. So if you were to look at a property that an Airbnb host has that they're leasing out in comparison to say what a regular tenant has from a landlord, what property do you think is going to look in better condition? The Airbnb host property,
Airbnb. Absolutely.
100%. So, and then also because we're in business and because we're making money, because these properties are really an asset to us because we're making money, we're financially incentivized to not only take care of the property, but we're also going to consistently pay the rent. Because again, we're making money, so we're going to consistently pay the rent. And a lot of times, these individuals like to partner up with us, these landlords, property managers, and apartment complexes, because if they see us doing our thing with one property, well, guess what? If they have more properties in their portfolio, we're kind of like that person, that their go-to person that they can, every time they get a new property, they can kind of pass it on to us, so we can grow together.
Mm.
So it's kind of it's a simple concept. There's many moving parts to it, but if you really think about that in itself right there, you know, we become an asset and we create a win-win situation for these landlords and property managers. So that's what makes a business model works, you know.
Mm. So, in essence, this partnership is centered around that they're going to keep the property in pristine condition, and you, somebody else that is sort of leasing it, you're going to make sure that the tenants stay in the property, and that's sort of the crux of the partnership. So here's a
100%.
very interesting question for somebody watching the Rashad Mills Show here on Awesome God Radio, Facebook and YouTube Live. And Kemoy, they love this concept to create passive income so they can travel around the world and just have freedom to do, even if it's not traveling, to do these other things that they so desire. What is the risk that you, as somebody on the back end, what are the risks that you hold? Because I'm sure people are saying, well, it has to be some kind of risk involved because it sounds too good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no business is perfect, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
there's risk in any, endeavor or any in that nature. But the reality is, I mean, there's different things in place to protect yourself. The cool thing is with Airbnb, they have host guarantees. So like if there's any damages that ever happen, during a guest staying at your property, literally you can take a bunch of pictures of it, video, send it to Airbnb, and eventually what they'll do is they'll actually compensate you for those damages. So you're not the one pretty much coming out of pocket for these expenses. They'll take care of it. There's also insurance, right? There's
Mm.
short-term rental insurance that you can get, right? So that way, if anything were to happen, again, you're protected again in that sense, right? What we also have to think about is it's not making money the way that you want to be, and you still have to pay the rent every single month. Well, there may be some things that you can kind of tweak to avoid that, right? But at the same time, worst case scenario, you can get the lease. But what I always teach my students, I kind of teach them how to research the market properly. So that way, when they are leasing these properties, they know, number one, do they have a property in a good location? Are they setting up their
Mm,
property properly? Are they taking the right pictures? Are they doing all these different things so that way they're setting themselves up for success, right? And that's something that I've always practiced since being Airbnb host. That I've done things to make sure that I'm setting myself up for success, right? Even like when COVID was at its height, right? Obviously, a lot of travel plans changed, right? A lot of people that were
absolutely.
that were staying in my place that maybe they were coming for a wedding, a graduation, just vacation, right? Well, guess what? A lot of those people canceled their bookings. I still have to pay my rent. So what did I do? Well, a good thing. Well, not necessarily a good thing, but because of COVID, there's a lot of health professionals that have these contracts, right? Travel nurses specifically, right? Travel nurses, they take these assignments all across the country and in places where they're not from, and guess what they need? They need housing.
Mm,
So it's like when COVID was at its height, well, guess what? I had a bunch of travel nurses staying at my place. And hey, I'm not matter of fact, their money is very good. The travel nurses make a lot of money. So it's kind of like I was able to charge a good amount of money where I'm still making a profit and take care of all my expenses. So it's just kind of one of those things where, see, the short-term rental business, it's not just for people that just, it's not just for, you're just not creating housing or a situation like that for people that are just traveling for fun. Like short-term rental is something that has been around for years, well before our time. And it's going to be something that's going to be around forever because people are always going to be traveling for fun, business. I
hmm
mean, health reasons. I mean, there's just so many different reasons. And the funny thing is, there's a lot of times where people don't even, they're not even looking at hotels first. They're really looking at Airbnbs or short-term rentals first, because that's just kind of what's going on. Because people recognize now they get a lot more bang for their buck with these housing. Because they get the kitchen and the laundry and the
mm.
amenities. So it's it's a very cool concept. When you kind of educate yourself the right way, it almost becomes like a foolproof business because there's so many different ways to make money from it.
Mm. Now, here's my next question for somebody that's interested in, and I don't want you to give all the information away because I want you to talk about your masterclass, which is occurring this Sunday.
Yeah.
But for an individual that really likes this concept, right? Likes this concept, passive income concept. The next question would be, well, Kemoy, you never told us how much money, like how many bands do I need to bring to the table in order to make this happen? And I want you to address that question because I know somebody's watching it, and that's one of the questions that they actually have.
Yeah. No, I mean that's a pretty good question. What I'll say is it honestly really depends. Because here's what I'll tell you. My first Airbnb was actually my own apartment, right, several years ago.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so
That puts
obviously,
you in a new level of hustle, Kamoy. Like you did your own apartment as an Airbnb.
yeah, man. Because think about it, I was traveling so much, so I was like, man, I'm about to be gone for like 2 weeks. So I just had this bright idea, let me try Airbnb my place while I was gone. And it was so cool because I literally covered my rent, while I was gone, on a trip. So, but like I'll say that to say, it really depends on where you're starting from. Now, if you're gonna start from scratch, like you're leasing a property, you need to take the rent, the deposit, you need to furnish it 100%. And I also do teach people that there's ways to find properties already furnished. So again, that could be another possibility to save costs. But
Mm,
if you're gonna start everything from scratch, I'll say on average it could be about $4,000. But hey, you may not even need that whole $4,000 liquid, right? Because whenever I furnish a place, I always use a credit card, right? I always use a credit card to furnish the place, and then what I'll do is I'll pay for that expense with my bookings that first month.
mm,
So it's like there, there's always ways, like if you get creative, there's always ways. Um, and then there are people that you can literally Airbnb, a basement. Maybe you have a basement in your house, right? You can Airbnb that. Maybe you have a guest house. I mean, there are people that Airbnb a bedroom in their house, right? Like there are people that literally set up their garage in a way
mm,
where it could be Airbnb. It just really depends. But again, if you're gonna get like an apartment condo or something of that nature, and you're doing everything from scratch, around 4,000. But it just there's different ways to go about it.
Hmm. So here's my next question for you. With the state of the world right now, it appears to be that things are on the rise. And when I say the rise, really alluding to the fact that the world is opening up again. So is this something that appears to be like it's going to be great for a business such as this, is the world opening up? Or do you feel like the people are still very skeptical about the nature of traveling?
Well, let me tell you this. Honestly, I feel like there's really no better time than now. Number one, just to be very candid, when COVID was at its height, right, when things were just kicking off, things were chaotic. It was very unknown. Nobody knew what was going to happen. A lot of Airbnb hosts stepped away from the game.
Hmm.
The same way how a lot of restaurant owners stepped out of the game. The same way how a lot of businesses just closed up shop because they didn't know what was going to happen, or they lost bookings like me, but they didn't know how to pivot, because of COVID. Because there were several hosts that stepped out the game, that leaves a great opportunity for the hosts that are currently in the game, because it's all about supply and demand. Well, guess what?
Hmm.
Supply kind of went down a little bit because a lot of hosts stepped out of the game. But demand is crazy, and then also, so for a person that wants to just get in the game, look, you're coming into this just a wide open opportunity, because the supply is needed. And then also, you gotta understand human nature. If you restrict people from doing something, they're gonna want to do it more. So there's a lot
Hmm.
of people that haven't been traveling all literally this last year, right? That just kind of miss traveling so much, or they haven't seen family and friends in so long. So people are gonna be traveling like crazy right now because they were so restricted. But guess what? These people need a place to stay,
Hmm.
right? So like me personally, my bookings are crazy. Like my bookings are crazy. I'm charging higher than I've ever charged before, and my occupancy rate is like a rock solid 90%. So it's like there's really no better time than now.
Hmm.
I mean, it just really is.
Wow. You're watching the Rashad Mills Show here on Awesome God Radio, Facebook and YouTube Live. I just want to chime in to some people who have tuned in. My wonderful wife, Nicole, thank you so much for all that you do, tuning in, watching the show. Miss Neal, thank you. You're a regular. Terrell Spencer chimes in and says, "Good evening, Kemoy." So, Kemoy, we're almost halfway through the show. And just this business model, I think it's just incredible, right? And to be honest with you, prior to actually watching your work, I never even thought about it, right? You go someplace and you stay, and then the question becomes, well, if I can stay in this place, can I partner up with, the person that owns the place or and get my own? It's just an incredible business model. But I want to go back a little bit because I really want to speak to this part because I know people that are watching the show and somebody is saying, you know what, I can't wait to learn more about Kemoy's masterclass and I'm going to jump into it. And you mentioned the term before, and it's the word mindset. What has to be the mindset of an individual who will potentially put up $4,000 or who will potentially go into this space? Everybody talks about what we want, but there are very few people who would actually go to the new space to sign up for a class, to pay for a class. Like, speak to the mindset that you have to have in order to be successful, not just with this, but just successful in general. It's a very mindset oriented thing.
Yeah. Well, well, you already know, Rashad. You've been an entrepreneur for quite some time. Like myself. And the thing is, my mindset is everything. Everything begins with the mind. And you need to make sure that you come into this not thinking it's a get rich quick thing, or I mean, as simple as the business is, you still have to be able to follow through with the simple steps,
Hmm.
right? And you also have to keep in mind that, again, no business is perfect. So, an entrepreneur is someone that pretty much solves problems.
So you're still watching the Rashad Mills
So
show here on
hopefully
Awesome God Radio. Kamoy, you broke up just for one moment. So if you can go back and maybe give us that last 10 or 15 seconds of that information again.
yeah, I was just pretty much saying you got to be solution oriented because with no matter what business that you're building, you are going to experience just things. You're going to experience certain problems, and you always got to be in the mindset of being solution oriented. And I encourage you to think long term. You know, of course, this is something that can make you a lot of money like in a very short period of time. But at the same time, you got to give yourself the opportunity, especially if it's new for you, to really kind of take in everything mentally and really get used to the business model as you're starting it, as you're growing. Because here's what I'll tell you, Rashad, like honestly, with an Airbnb business, you can really kick off a business like this in a week. It really doesn't take a long time. But don't let the fact that you can get started with things like this in such a short period of time just kind of, I don't know, just kind of get you set on just you wanted to get rich quick. You know, you want to think long term and have the mindset of building relationships. Because as we're connecting with these landlords and property managers and apartment complexes, like having the mindset of building relationships is key. I'm seeing every business. You want to always, you got to saying people make the business work in any business. So you want to have that mindset where you're building relationships, you're connecting with people, and you have a heart to serve because we are creating environments, we are creating spaces for people that are traveling for with their loved ones and
Mm.
to have fun. So um, I definitely do this because I love me personally. I love to travel, so I love to create spaces that kind of help other people travel, into where my Airbnbs are located. So you got to have that type of mindset, and then just don't be like you want to constantly grow. Even when you get into
Mm.
this space, you start making money. You don't want to feel like you don't need to grow anymore. Like you always want to be learning new things. You always want to be very aware of what's going on within Airbnb and short-term rental and just kind of just the market in general. So that way you can always have a mindset of growth, right? Because
Mm.
you don't want to be like Blockbuster. See,
Ah,
Blockbuster was making a lot of money. They were doing their thing. But then guess what? Netflix came about, and matter of fact, Netflix tried to what? They tried to merge with Blockbuster. Or they tried to kind of create some type of partnership, but they weren't open-minded. And what happened? Now they're Blockbuster got pretty much just demolished. I think they just got like one lonely location now.
I think it
Um,
is. I literally just saw that the other day. So it's one location now, and interestingly enough, I think it's a special about the lone blockbuster, and it might be on Netflix. Oddly enough,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, it's really odd. So it's interesting that you mentioned that. But I wanted you
yeah,
to talk about that a little bit because a lot of people they want to get into a different space, but yet their mind is still in the old space. So until you can see yourself in this new space, and when you talk about growth, it was just like everything. So we always have to continually grow to get to the place that ultimately we want to be. So
yep,
here's a perfect opportunity. Tell us about this masterclass. Where number one, an individual can go to sign up for the masterclass, what they would get, and how this masterclass can really change not only again the financial landscape for them, but just can change sort of the course of their life to a certain degree.
yeah. Yeah, so pretty much I'm doing a master class this Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And pretty much I'm going to give, people just a very solid overview and understanding of this business model. For a lot of people, this is just kind of completely just, they don't know if it's new, they're not familiar with it, and then for some people they're kind of fairly familiar with it. And what I'll say is no matter whether you have a lot of knowledge or no knowledge, this masterclass is going to really give you the understanding on how you can really wrap your mind around this business model and how an everyday person can really make a lot of money with taking part in a business like this. And honestly, how this can help you make more money in 2021 than you ever did in 2020. you know and seating is very limited. Seating is very limited for this master class, so I'd highly encourage you to number one get registered. And the way how you can get registered, you can actually go to my Instagram. Go to the bio in my Instagram. You can find a link there. My Instagram is Kemoy underscore Martin. Kemoy underscore Martin. And I believe even in Facebook, if you look at my Facebook bio as well, I believe it's there as well, right? And if you have any trouble trying to find the link, I mean, you can shoot me a message on Instagram or Facebook as well. My name is pretty unique. Kemoy, Kemoy. Last name Martin. You'll be able to find me, and I'll shoot you the link. Right. So you want to get registered, and you want to you want to set a reminder in your calendar. Because the thing is, when you kind of just register for a Zoom, it's kind of easy to forget and let life go by. So you highly encourage you to set that reminder in your calendar, right? And you know, if there's anything that you truly want to get out of this business or truly any type of insight, I promise you I'll help you bring it home. If you just kind of connect with me and jump on that masterclass.
Wow. So you're watching the Rashad Mills Show here on Awesome God Radio, Facebook and YouTube Live, joined by my guest, Kemoy Martin, real estate investor, short term rental coach, and world travelers. Traveled to over 40 countries, and that literally by maybe tomorrow night, Eastern Standard Time, maybe that's 41. Man, you want to go so much. It is very difficult to keep up with you. But I try. I try via Instagram because I love, number one, the content that you put out, just exposing people to different parts of the world. And number two, actually, more importantly, this is number one, sort of this business model that you want to make it accessible to everybody so they can be a part and part of this business model, and then create the time so they can have the freedom to do the things that they want to do. So now I want to shift a little bit from the business model itself to traveling, right? So here's my first question. What was the first place that you traveled to, and then what was the moment that created this bug that says, man, I have to do this as much as I can? Like, what was that first place and or that first experience?
See, like the first place I've ever traveled to, like outside my home,
Yeah. Or just that first
I don't know.
experience where it was like, man, I have to, I got a taste of this and I need to taste this more often.
Yeah. Well, for me, the first place I ever traveled to, I mean, that's when I was like a little kid. My parents probably brought me like, I don't know, to Florida or like the Bahamas or something.
Mm,
But in terms of like really memorable, and like I knew like, man, like for this travel thing, I really want to make it like a lifestyle thing. I would say Mexico. So when I was an undergrad, I mean, at that point I had traveled to a few countries, but when I was an undergrad, I had the opportunity to study abroad in Mexico,
mm.
specifically in a city called Oaxaca. And I spent the whole month there. I was like kind of taking a Spanish class at a local university, and that experience was crazy. Like I was staying with like a local, so like I was like forced to learn Spanish, and like if I wanted to eat food, I had to like learn how to properly communicate.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and it wasn't like in Cancun, like it wasn't like in the super touristy part. It was like a really small part of the country. Um, but that experience like really opened my mind up because I really got a chance to like learn the different dynamics of travel, not just like the fun turn up, cool beach aspect,
Hmm.
but really the more so like the I don't know, man, just really connecting with the people, the culture, learning the language, um, and just kind of and because I wasn't with like a bunch of friends, it allowed me really to get a lot of alone time and really tap in just like with me as a person. And I think it was me being in that different environment. It allowed me to connect with myself in a way that I've never connected before. And I was like,
Mm,
man, it's something about traveling the world and something about being somewhere new that allows you to discover more of yourself. And I knew that I wanted more of that, because I was like, okay, if I can experience that here, I'm pretty sure that I can experience that a lot more places around the world as well. Man, like this is so cool. Like I'm seeing all these different sites, and I'm like, there's so much more outside my backyard.
mm,
Um, and I just knew that I just wanted to do it for the rest of my life, man. Like I knew I wanted to do that. I knew that I need to make sure that whatever I do for a living, it allows me the freedom to do that. Um, I, if I'm going to be in a relationship, I need to make sure my spouse is on board with that. Like everything, everything needs to align in some sense of the matter with the ability to experience around the world. It just had to.
So here's a very interesting question for you. As you travel around the world, is it difficult to sort of keep up with all of the business stuff that you have going on? Because one day it might be Panama, the next day it might be, I don't know, New York City, and then next week we might be in Asia. Is that difficult to sort of keep up with the business aspect, which allows you to travel so much?
So one thing that you know I was kind of forced to learn, right? Because in the very beginning, as I was like kind of traveling a lot and building my businesses, it was tough, right? Because it was like a juggling act, right? Because I was like, okay, I still want to make a bunch of money, but I still want to travel. But the problem was, when it was only me and I was the only person within my businesses, that are actually making my business work, I wasn't making money while I was traveling. So what I had to learn how to do was to create a system to where as though it's not just me, I had to incorporate other people within my business. And it got to the point where my businesses were able to thrive, and matter of fact, able to make more money when I'm not around because of having the right system in place.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the goal. Like if you want to create freedom, it it can't just be about you. Like you got to create a system, you got to create leverage. Um, and the thing is, when you set it up the right way, you'll be able to make a bunch of money while still being able to have the freedom to do what you want. But a system is very key. You got to have systems. You got to.
Hmm. So just on average, how many days? Let's say on an average month, 30 days, somewhere in that ballpark number. How many days are you stationary at your own place, or is the world has the world become your place?
Listen, it depends on what month. It, 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 it really does. I mean, some months I'm home for the majority of the month, right? And then some months it's like this past like between like this past month March, between March and beginning of April, like the world has seen me more than my apartment, right? So it's like
I love it.
it just depends. It really
So
depends.
as a young guy yourself, and just traveling a lot, have you noticed the shift? Because maybe it's just me, just sort of watching the world via social media and just being able to talk to some of my clients and other people. Have you seen sort of this shift in a lot of young black people becoming involved with traveling more? And I watch it and I absolutely love to see it. But have you noticed that shift? And if so, what do you think has led to that?
Yeah, there definitely has been a shift. Um, I remember when I kind of caught the travel bug, and me and my close circle were traveling a lot in like 2013. It wasn't really like I didn't really see a lot of young, African Americans really traveling like that.
Hmm.
But it was like year after year, as time went on, more and more were people, more and more of us were doing it, and I really feel like the reason why that became what it is because of exposure.
Mm,
And the more of us that started traveling, the more it showed other people, oh wow, like we should do that too. And that's kind of what it is. It's all about exposure, right? And it's honestly the same thing when it comes to entrepreneurship and creating wealth. Like
hmm.
the the more African Americans we see become millionaires, guess what? It exposes more people to, well, wait, this is they're doing it. I want to do it. So the thing is, that's just kind of how it was. More, it just got there was just more exposure, and social media obviously kind of increased that exposure as well. You
Hmm.
know, so I would definitely say that played a really big part. The
Yeah,
exposure, the social media and the exposure.
yeah. So speaking of exposure, right, in social media, I think Tulum, Mexico, that has been sort of the hot spot. What has been? I'm sure you've been there. Am I correct to assume that?
Mhm.
What has been your thought on that? I'm very curious because I literally see that all over the place now.
Yeah, man. Well, for one, Mexico is just kind of one of those places, one of the very few places that were allowing people to enter the country even during the height of COVID,
Mm,
and you didn't have to have a COVID test. Well, guess what? Because they were one of the few countries that were allowing people, Americans or just probably a lot of other countries, they were getting a much higher volume of people than they usually would,
mm,
right? Because kind of like people didn't have a choice. It was like, well, I want to travel. what's the options? I mean, we only got like two or three countries. Well, I was going to Mexico, right? And Tulum was that kind of that spot in Mexico that a lot of people. Okay, got you. Don't know how I'm asking. But yeah,
No, totally understand.
Tulum was that spot that a lot of people hadn't really experienced yet because Cancun was Cancun. When you're in Mexico, Cancun is kind of like that first spot.
Mm-hmm.
So Tulum was kind of like that spot where a lot of people that maybe have been to Mexico or maybe haven't been to Mexico, but it was like, oh, I've never been. So even though like Mexico was a very popular country that everybody heard about, Tulum was kind of like that spot that was like kind of on the come up. So
Mm.
it kind of compelled people to go there. And to be honest with you, man, like Tulum is really cool. Like Tulum is a type of place where when you go there, you'll meet a lot of people that just like they went there for a few days or a week, and like after being out there, they decided to move out there, or
I've,
they're there for like
I've heard that.
listen, like it is. It just and the thing it kind of just it has that vibe, it has that energy where like it just it's so cool. It's kind of hard to explain. Like and it's a little sad because it's starting to become more and more touristy, so it's kind of taking away that unique
That
vibe.
authentic feel, right?
Yeah, and if you talk to like a lot of people that live there, they'll tell you that. Um, but that's kind of like what Tulum is, man. Like Tulum is just so cool, unique, and hip. You know, it's just different. It's not like Cancun. So So because of people were so restricted and as far as the limited countries, Mexico became that spot, and because of how cool Tulum was just kind of the target. And now because of what's going on and because of all the volume that Tulum is getting, they're pretty much setting up to have an airport in Tulum. I want to say by like 2023.
Mm.
Because now if you want to get to Tulum, you have to fly into Cancun and then take that like hour and a half to 2 hour drive, something like that, down to Tulum. But now Tulum's like, hey, we're getting so much business. Let's set up an airport right here. So
Airport and
yeah,
capitalize off of it, right?
that's what that's
Absolutely.
gonna do. A lot of people see the opportunity, so now they want to kind of get a property in Tulum. Even I've been thinking about getting an Airbnb in Tulum myself. So yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So you're watching the Rashad Mills Show here on Awesome God Radio, Facebook and YouTube Live, joined by my guest, Kemoy Martin, real estate investor, short-term rental coach, and world traveler up to 40 countries. So, Kemoy, we are actually at that point in the show, about 12 minutes left in the show, where I want to introduce you to a segment called Rapid Fire. First and foremost, are you willingly going to participate in Rapid Fire?
100%.
I love it. And I love the energy and the confidence that you said, sure, I'll do it, Rashad, no problem. Here's what I like to tell people every week. It's my show, so if you say no, you have to do it anyway. You're stuck. So that's the part about rapid fire. So it's rapid fire 5. I am literally going to give you a shout out to my pops just tuning in. Thank you so much for helping me make it to Earth, pops, and then supporting me and everything that I do. I definitely appreciate that as well. Kim Bates, thank you so much for tuning into the Rashad Mills Show here on Awesome God Radio. So back to it, Rapid Fire 5, where I'm literally going to give you 5 questions, and there's going to be a bonus at the end. But in 30 to 45 seconds, I want you to answer each question. Are you in fact ready?
Yep.
Okay, so my first question, I want you to give me, and this probably is going to be a minute. I want you to give me the funniest or strangest experience that you have ever encountered while traveling. Strangest
Wow.
or funniest experience. Insert the Jeopardy music.
The strangest or funniest experience when traveling. Gosh.
I think I stumped you, Kamoy. I think I stumped you.
Because I've had some pretty interesting experiences, man. That's tough.
Just give us one. Give us a piece of one.
Um, damn. I
For the
wish I
sake
had
of
more time for that
for,
one.
for the sake of time, hold on to that. We'll circle back to that one. My second
Yeah, Yeah. Let me think about that. Strangers of France.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
we'll circle back and see if you can find an answer. My second question, 45 seconds or less. Your favorite cuisine and what country did you have it in? I know that's another tough one.
Well, what I will say is I had the most Italian. I don't even. I had the most Italian pasta in Amsterdam.
Mm,
It was in a random alley in the red light district of Amsterdam. It was like this little Italian shop, this guy from Italy, and he made everything from scratch. It was like a little hole in the wall.
wow.
It was fire. It was
Wow.
amazing.
Okay. So the pasta. Okay. Got you. Now, 45 seconds or less with this one. There were three particular places that in research in preparation for the show, I went back on your Instagram page and I just kind of scrolled because there's so many amazing sites to look at. And I want you to talk about these three things. Number one, tell me about the experience that when you were in Turkey and you just have these birds around you, and I think it's you and maybe your better half, you guys were just there, and it looks like it's just a hallmark card of what travel should be like. What was that experience like?
Yeah, so it was pretty crazy because I can't me personally I have this little weird phobia of like when there's a bunch of birds flying above my head, I just kind of feel like one's just kind of like splat on me. Um, but
I'm with you there.
being on that rooftop, it was like so scenic and like and cool. And I knew that the camera was on us to kind of capture like a really cool moment. So like,
Wow.
as much as the birds were like above our heads, just kind of like going crazy, I just wanted to do my best to be cool
Hmm.
and just avoid just getting splat on. That's just kind of what I was thinking during that time.
Now, here's a quick side question. When you find these amazing places, do you research them in advance, and once you get there, you sort of let it flow organically, or maybe the locals tell you about them?
Yes, I definitely research in advance. Like whenever I'm gonna travel someplace, me personally, I research like the coolest spots or the most unique spots. So that way, whenever I get there, I already kind of have I have a great idea on what I'm gonna see, what I'm gonna do. But then I also keep an open mind to like anything that I didn't discover from like locals as well.
Gotcha. Here's my fourth question. Hawaii. It looks like you on the side of a cliff doing pull-ups. Now, I was forced to ask this question. My wife is absolutely enamored by Hawaii, so I had to ask this question. Like, were you literally hanging off of a cliff in Hawaii doing pull-ups? And I think the caption was like, "This is much better than the gym," something along those lines.
So it wasn't. There was actually it was the way how the angle was set up.
Ah,
There was like a good amount of grounding under me.
hmm.
I did have to pull myself up a little bit on that little small cliff part, but no, it wasn't like there was nothing under me. No,
Okay.
I'm a little afraid of heights, so I don't think I'll be
Okay.
able enough to do that.
Listen, I literally showed that to my wife earlier, and she said, "Ooh." Her facial expression indicated that you are a brave man. So I will let her know that you had a substantial grounding under you just to make sure. And last but not least, this last question of rapid fire. Tell me about this temple in Indonesia. It was a really cool picture that you had. Tell me about that.
The temple. Which picture was that? Because I feel like there was a couple of temples I went to in Indonesia.
I think that you were at the bottom of this one and you were dressed in almost like garb that was associated, with that particular culture. It was almost like, if you remember, sort of this Mortal Kombat, I believe, outfit that you had on. It was this really cool picture.
Yeah, yeah, okay. That was in Bali.
That was in Bali. Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, man. I mean, that was pretty cool. I mean, temples are a really big thing in Bali. So it's kind of like when you asked me, I was just kind of wondering, like, man, which temple? Because I feel like I feel like I went to 100 temples in Bali.
Wow. Okay.
But I mean, it was a really cool experience. They're pretty spiritual out there. So when you kind of like go to certain temples, especially that one, you just kind of feel like a strong just sense of energy.
Hmm.
It just feels it's a cool experience. You know.
Gotcha. And here's the bonus question: the place that you haven't been to that you are dying to get to? What is that place for you? What is the place in the world that I haven't been here, but I got to get here? What is that place?
There's places, but I'll tell you three. There's like three off the top of my head right now, and that's
Okay,
just kind of
perfect.
like, and that's Morocco,
Morocco,
um, Bora Bora, and the Maldives. Those are
the
just like,
Maldives. Yes.
yeah. So those are heavy on my list right now.
Okay, and Bora Bora, got you. So my
Yeah.
wife is in the background, and when you said the Maldives, she said, "Hmm." So that's like Rashad, get it together and make it happen. I can read between the lines there. So thank you so much for joining on the Rashad Mills Show, Awesome God Radio, Facebook and YouTube Live. Again, Kemoy Martin, real estate investor, short-term rental coach, in addition to world traveler, up to 40 countries. Make sure that you find him Instagram or Facebook, Kemoy, KEMOYMARTIN, and then the link in his bio in Instagram. You can actually register, I should say, for the masterclass that's taking place this Sunday. He will provide you with all the ins and outs, answer all of your questions as it relates to Airbnb and creating not just passive income, but creating the freedom so you can do anything you please. And maybe you'll take his motto and sort of travel the world and eat some red snapper in Panama on your way back to Baltimore. And again, Kemoy, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for creating a space that you can educate not only myself but the people who tuned into the show. And thank you for your commitment to the show, literally changing your travel arrangements to make sure that you were available this evening. So from the bottom of my heart, I greatly appreciate it. And anything that I can do in the Rashad Mills Show to help you out, whether it's a new project coming down the road or anything that you need, certainly reach out and I'll make it happen.
Rashad, my brother, I appreciate you having me on here. I love what you're doing. I love the fact that you create a platform that highlights entrepreneurs and just people that are making an impact. And I definitely see what you're doing in the community, and it's really needed, and it's very appreciated, especially from a person like me. So man, like keep doing your thing. You're helping and impacting more people than you have any idea. So keep doing your thing, brother.
I definitely appreciate it. And Kamoy, last but not least, hopefully we'll bump into each other in some random airport in some random country.
I'm sure we will.
Thank you so much and safe travels.
Hi, my brother.
All
All
right,
right.
have a good one.
You too.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for riding alongside with me and my guests. And that's what I'm talking about, people that are truly committed to what they're going to do. This gentleman changed, I should say, his travel arrangements in order to stay committed to the Rashad Mills Show here on Awesome God Radio. So I guess I'll leave you with this question that only you can, in fact, answer. What are you committed to? On that note, I love you, and I'll see you on the next Rashad Mills Show.